Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday afternoon, October 30th. We have quite a wild weather situation developing for the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast U.S. for later tomorrow night. That's Thursday night into early Friday morning. Every once in a while you get a strong frontal passage that becomes kind of a pattern changer, and indeed that's what we will experience tomorrow night in the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S. as a very strong cold front comes through with downpours, perhaps some severe thunderstorm activity, winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour or so, and it will kind of set the stage for a colder weather pattern as we begin the month of November. In fact, it looks like much of November will be colder than normal in the Great Lakes, the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S., warmer than normal out in the Western U.S., but of course up till now, the Eastern U.S. has experienced generally warmer than normal conditions in the month of October, but that is about to change, and this frontal passage tomorrow night will set off the change to a colder than normal weather pattern for much of the Eastern U.S. Before we get to the weather situation developing for the Eastern U.S., we've talked extensively over the past few days about the record-breaking cold that first moved into the western U.S., then spread out into the central U.S., accompanied by accumulating snow in many areas. This is a temperature plot from kind of a remote observing station up in northern Utah, and it is known for highly unusual localized effects. Nonetheless, this is quite an impressive temperature plot from the overnight hours at this high elevation location in Utah, again named Peter Sinks, Utah. In fact, look at this. The temperatures dropped in the overnight hours to around minus 43 degrees or so. That is perhaps the lowest temperature ever recorded in the lower 48 during the month of October. Now, it will go down as an unofficial measurement because this is apparently not an official weather station according to NOAA, but nonetheless, minus 43 degrees at Peter Sinks, Utah in the overnight hours, and some incredible numbers over the past few days, Monday, Tuesday, and today, Wednesday, with not only daily temperature records being set, but in many, many places, the all-time low for the month of October has been set. Denver, Colorado, for example, has been hit quite hard. Only 14 degrees there now in the middle of the day. Could go down into lower single digits in the overnight hours, which is one of the coldest October readings in a long, long time out there. And they've, of course, been hit by a couple different snowstorms during the month of October. But all the action is about to shift to the Mid-Atlantic region and Northeast U.S. for tomorrow night, most likely between the hours of 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. with some heavy downpours, strong to severe thunderstorms, perhaps damaging wind gusts of 50 miles per hour or so. Well, let's start off with NOAA's Storm Prediction Center based in Norman, Oklahoma. This is the forecast map for the potential of severe weather for tomorrow and tomorrow night, and indeed they have upped it to an enhanced risk of severe weather from southern Pennsylvania all the way across the D.C. metro region down into southern Virginia, northern central part of North Carolina, and really can be some strong to severe thunderstorms anywhere along this area right here, and this is associated with that powerful cold front that moves through the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S. in the overnight hours tomorrow night. Again, the main period of concern is between around 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. going into the early morning hours of Friday. Well, let's take a look at the current radar map as we begin to talk about what could happen here tomorrow night in the Mid-Atlantic region, Northeast U.S. First of all, lots of moisture, a warm, humid air mass down across the south central states. And indeed, tomorrow will turn out to be quite unusually warm in places like D.C., Philadelphia, New York City. High temperatures 70 to 75 degrees, way above normal for this time of the year. But of course, the western central U.S. way below normal still. Some accumulating snow. Yesterday, Colorado got hit hard, and today it's really Nebraska all the way up to Wisconsin. And tomorrow night, when that cold front slides through the Ohio Valley, across the eastern Great Lakes into the eastern U.S., expect some snow and snow squalls around the Great Lakes region, and even across western Pennsylvania. It could become cold enough for a change over to snow later on tomorrow night as this cold front barrels to the east. And again, strong to severe thunderstorms possible tomorrow night in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, all the way up to Boston area. And especially vulnerable are areas just to the north and west of the I-95 corridor. There'll be a tendency for it to weaken slightly as you get closer and closer to the coastline. So along the coast, probably a little bit less of a risk of severe weather and a little bit less rainfall expected tomorrow night. Nonetheless, wild weather all over the place in the mid-Atlantic and northeast U.S. tomorrow night. And again, around 8 p.m. to 2 or 3 a.m., the expected time period for this frontal passage. Well, let's walk through the upper level forecast map, 500 millibars by the very latest GFS model run at 12Z today. This is the upper level low of interest, and watch what happens over the next 24 hours or so. It slides all the way up, all the way up to the Great Lakes region, and then by later on tomorrow night, this is about 2 a.m. forecast map for early Friday morning, it really takes on a negatively tilted axis. What we're saying there is its trough axis from the upper level low, which is situated right in this region, extends from the northwest to the southeast. And we've talked about this before with the negatively tilted trough axis. The upper motion is really strong just on that northeastern quadrant of that upper level jet streak. That will set off a squall line, most likely starting late tomorrow in a north-south orientation from central New York down across central Pennsylvania and all the way down into central Virginia, and that arrives in the I-95 corridor late tomorrow evening into the overnight hours, again with the possibility of strong to severe thunderstorms, perhaps damaging wind gusts, and still plenty of leaves left on the trees. That leaves the trees more vulnerable in 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Power outages, in other words, on the table for later on tomorrow night. Now, during the daytime hours, and we'll get to that in a moment here, could actually be a dry slot that ends the rain in the morning, maybe a period of relative rain-free during the mid to late afternoon into the early evening in the I-95 corridor region. That would be good news for trick-or-treaters, let's say between the hours of 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. or so. There may be generally rain-free conditions as a dry slot forms ahead of that strong front, but again, watch out after 8 p.m., 9 p.m. tomorrow night. All hell could break loose in the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast U.S. Let's go a little farther, and here we have that upper level low going into the southeastern part of Canada. And strong winds will continue through Friday morning in the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S., but then tend to die down during the afternoon and evening, setting us up for a pretty chilly night on Friday night. Well, now let's walk through the surface forecast maps from the 12Z GFS model run. Again, snow out in the middle part of the country, lots of moisture in the east. And here we go into the overnight hours. Expect a pickup in the rainfall late tonight, wee hours of the morning in the I-95 corridor region, and it looks like it'll continue to rain during the morning. But then there could be a dry slot coming up from the southwest to the northeast later tomorrow afternoon into the very early part of tomorrow evening, especially over the Delmarva Peninsula and let's say up into southern New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, perhaps a window of opportunity for trick-or-treaters. But then that front really takes shape here by early tomorrow night, and a squall line forms central New York down across central Pennsylvania all the way into the western part of Virginia, and that will have some strong to potentially severe thunderstorms, which then pushes into the I-95 corridor, probably again between the hours of 8 or 9 p.m. and 2 or 3 a.m. into the early mornings of Friday. Notice here some blue showing up. Could get cold enough for a changeover from rain to snow across western Pennsylvania. The winds will really rip across the Great Lakes, and a changeover to snow, maybe even some accumulating snow later on tomorrow night. And again, watch out for 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts associated with that squall line. First, the winds will be quite strong during the afternoon and early evening out of the south or southwest, but then behind the front, they'll shift to a northwesterly direction later on tomorrow night. And again, pretty decent pressure gradient on Friday morning, but the wind should diminish quite a bit by the latter part of the afternoon into the early evening. And then this high pressure area sits on top of the region tomorrow night. Quite a chilly night. It turns even cooler later in the weekend, however. Let's move ahead here into the day. You see these thickness values dropping from west to east, and indeed another front comes through here by early Sunday. And Sunday, that frontal system will usher in the coldest air of the season so far on Sunday. And then by Sunday night, we have a very good setup here for a widespread freeze. This is late Sunday night going into early Monday morning. High pressure moves directly overhead, probably clear skies, diminishing winds, the coldest air of the season so far. We really haven't seen temperatures near or below the freezing mark yet in much of the I-95 corridor region between D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, but there's an outside chance for that to happen Friday night, but an even better chance on Sunday night. Looks like a widespread freeze coming Sunday night with ideal radiational cooling conditions expected. Let's move a little bit forward here. By Monday morning, temperatures probably at or around 30, 32 degrees in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, with high pressure sitting right on top of the region. And again, this frontal passage tomorrow night looks like it'll set the stage for generally a colder weather pattern through the first couple of weeks of November, and indeed much of November could turn out to be colder than normal in the northeast U.S. and mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes, while the western U.S. stays warmer than normal. So again, a pattern-changing type of frontal passage tomorrow night with downpours possible, severe thunderstorms, and damaging wind gusts. Much cooler on Friday and Saturday, and even colder air moves in on Sunday with a widespread freeze likely Sunday night into early Monday. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.